Hey ladies and gentlemen, it has been a long time since we've produced any content on this channel, not for lack of trying. In fact, I think we're trying too hard. So our standards are constantly higher than our ability to actually have time and or resources to produce content. So I would like to kick off an effort to reduce our standards. We got to lower our standards to the point where we can actually make a difference by getting content produced. So the new set's not done. I haven't shaved. I don't have, well-prepared notes. My kids are awake and making noise. The studio's not perfectly silent, but we've worried about this for over a year now, and we've produced almost no content because of it. So we're just going to do this because it's important. So the thing I wanted to share today was an experience I had a few weeks ago. There's a group called College of Complexes here in Dallas. College of Complexes is a debate group in Dallas. It's a bunch of people. They get together at a restaurant and they have a format that they go through where somebody gets up and I think has up to an hour to make a case for something. And then everyone gets to ask them questions. They get to respond to the questions. And then everyone left gets to come up and give 5-minute kind of responses. Followed by closing arguments by the person. So this is my personal first experience with public speaking in a controversial forum, meaning I've spoken a lot in front of people that are friends or that agree with me or that it's non-controversial, or maybe I'm giving a presentation on something I'm familiar with. This was my first time talking to a room full of people that disagreed with me, trying to make a point. So that was very interesting. It's great practice. So I've decided to try and do it more. And also, if I come up with good ideas or good arguments from these things, I will try and come here and share them with you. This particular day, the guy was giving a presentation on constitutional conventions and the ability for the states to come together in America to amend or modify the Constitution. And so there's a lot of Democrats there, a lot of Republicans there, almost no libertarian types there. And as of recently, Voluntarists of Dallas, which is a group of voluntarists that Ryan and I have started a while back and have been growing, have now been showing up to this occasionally. So we're kind of the strange ones in the room, the voluntarists, the anarchists, the ones that disagree with everyone and are also the most consistent in the room. We're the group that has been showing up, throwing our 2.5 cents of fiat currency into the discussion. This time, like I said, it was a room full of people. They're all statists. They're all making arguments for how we. It's good. It's good. I'm just doing it. So this time, again, room full of people. They're all making arguments on how who they should vote for, what they should vote for, how they can get the states together to make what changes that they think in their minds are going to change the country and make it all work, right? So the whole time I notice that everyone is using these collective sort of terms. They're saying we, they're saying us. We have to make these changes so that the economy doesn't collapse and hurt us and society and we all have to vote to enact these things to control everyone around us. And as usual, the kind of collectivist sort of gun in the room sort of I'm going to vote to get my way because I am the guy that has the magic idea that's going to make everybody happy or better off or whatever. No one sees some of the fundamentals of their arguments. And so I did a little 2 minutes on consent in front of this was my first controversial speech in front of anybody ever. And I just wanted to kind of go over the bullet points that I had here. So during the meeting, I just quickly took some notes on my phone, just little bullet points, and then I stood up in front of them. And it basically went something like this. Recently, the Homeowners Association, the HOA in my neighborhood, came down on us because we had some window coverings. So basically we covered our windows with a material that helps darken the room so that my son could sleep better. And because from the outside of the house you could see this window covering, and it wasn't the normal blinds that they want to see, they basically threatened to fine me $50 a day for every day that we left this window covering up. So there's a group of people living near me that think they have a say in what I can or cannot put up in the windows of my house. If I chose to operate a business out of my house, there's another group of people living near me who think they should have a say in that as well. So they have to license or not license, or I have to get approval to run a business out of my home. Up until very recently, until a new law was passed, in Texas, I did not have the ability to walk around on my property with a gun on my hip. Because again, a group of people living around me have made a decision on what I can or can't do. If I choose to grow certain types of vegetation in my backyard, again, there's a group of people in this country that have made decisions backed up by the force of government and guns and violence to prevent me or to control what I can and can't do with the dirt in my backyard. I'm talking about weed in this case, but it could be really anything. I would have to license if I wanted to grow some crops in my backyard. So again, same thing. Group of people around me controlling what I do. Only one of these 4 examples was moral. And it was the HOA. Because the thing that all the others lacked was consent. And this is the major point that I wanted to get across to these people, was the idea of personal consent. When I moved here, I knew in advance there was an HOA. I knew in advance the HOA had rules that I had to follow. I read those rules and I agreed to them. Otherwise, I couldn't have moved in here. I consented to being controlled by a certain list of rules that I knew of in advance and that I approved of and I consented to. Everything else in my example, running a business out of my home, walking around armed or, carrying certain types of equipment on my person, on my property, growing things in my backyard on my property, all of these things are controlled by groups of people around me. The difference is I never consented to those. Oh, they said, well, you could have voted, you had your chance, you had your say, you could have voted to make open carry possible. You could have, you can always vote for politicians that may or may not try and, make you more free on what you can grow or have on your property. And that is not the point. The point is consent is morality. The difference between theft and charity is your consent. If someone uses force against your consent to take something from you, that's theft. If they ask you for something and you hand it to them, that's a gift, that's charity. The difference between rape and lovemaking is consent. The difference between the guy stabbing you and your surgeon is consent. So we're educated since birth in this country that our founding fathers tell us that governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. The great indoctrination is that there's this delusion that our consent can somehow be collectivized. And what I mean by that is, we all get together and we vote, and whoever wins somehow also garners the consent of those that lost. Consent is an individual act that you and you alone can choose to have or to give, and it can be changed at any time according to your will. 51% voting for a government does not mean that the other 49% become citizens. It means 51% now rule each other, and the rest stay as they are and get left alone. So I told these people that I hate these terms, we, us, Americans, society, we the people. Stop speaking for me. You can't vote the guy that's stabbing me into a surgeon. The great hubris of your politics is the presumption that you know best for everyone around you. I do not consent. Your government is getting on my freedom. I would ask you to keep it to yourself. I would also ask you to think about the power of your own individual personal consent. Thanks.